found that there are 5 basic moral emotions. Non-harming, which is kind of built-in sense that it's not good to harm your neighbor, and if somebody else is harming them, that they're bad, and so on. Fairness, that things should be done equally. Loyalty, respect for authority, and purity or sanctity. He finds interestingly that the non-harming and fairness is shared by everybody, but that most societies tend to have a political spectrum. Here in the US, it's the sort of left versus the right. And the right tends to kind of emphasize these things more, and the left tends to think that, no, as long as you're not hurting anybody, you should be able to do whatever you want. And so understanding that difference helps understand why. You know, why are there are these 2 philosophies that seem so prevalent? Human morality is all about the relationship of the individual to the group. And the Kohlberg in the 70s analyzed a bunch of cultures and a bunch of different people, and he discovered that there are 6 basic stages of human morality, which basically go from a purely kind of egoic, self-oriented state to a much more identification with the whole. And he had some evidence that there might be a 7th stage, where like in Buddhism, there's the philosophy that you identify, yourself with all sentient beings. And he found a few people, but he didn't find enough to get good data to actually call it another stage. And the way he would sort of do this is he would tell a story like, your wife is sick, the pharmacist has developed some medicine that would work to save her, and she's going to die if she doesn't get this medicine. But the pharmacist is charging $10,000 for it, and you only have $1,000. You plead with the pharmacist, he says, no, I developed the medicine, it's my medicine, I can do what I want. So you sneak in the middle of the night and you steal the medicine. The question is, was that a moral act or not? And there are arguments both, yes, that was, or no, that wasn't. But he wasn't interested in that. He was interested in what reasoning people used to say whether it was moral or not. So, like at level 1, they might say, oh, if he got caught stealing medicine, they might throw him in jail, and being in jail is a really bad thing. You wouldn't want to do that. So that's not a good thing. Level 2 might be, it's sort of at the level, well, what's in it for me? What's the benefit for me? Going up, it's sort of that the law, there's this abstract notion of law, and that following the law is important and good. At the sort of highest level, it's universal ethical principles. You might say, hey, this is the life of my wife, and that far supersedes any stupid stuff about stealing. And so therefore, obviously, it's the ethical act. Or on the opposite side, you might say, well, by stealing the medicine, he might be preventing somebody else from using that medicine. And so, and so there's sort of different ways of reasoning. And he found that people typically go through these stages in sequence. And that different societies tend to hang out at different levels as sort of the level that they focus their morality on. Interestingly enough, humanity as a whole has been moving in a positive moral direction. 200 years ago, slavery was regarded as acceptable in most societies. Recently, at least at the official level, slavery is bad. Torture, war crimes, women's rights, racial equality, animals' rights, ecological movement, sustainability. There's a nice book by Paul Hawken called Blessed Unrest, which argues that the largest movement in human history is occurring right now, of a general shift toward greater awareness and compassion, and so that's a sort of hopeful. The reason I'm sort of giving this sort of background story is that we're at a critical juncture where new technologies are arising, and these new technologies will enable us to do things that we haven't been able to do in the past, and we need to decide how we want to use these technologies. And so my goal is to use them to create a positive cooperative society. So I think it's hopeful that sort of the general progression of humanity has been in this direction. So with that sort of lead in, let's now talk about artificial intelligence. And here's a little graph of Moore's law, which sort of charts, from 1900, this is from Ray Kurzweil, 1900 to the present, roughly, how fast computers were with different technologies. And this is a log-log scale, so each increment from here to here is a factor of 1,000. And remarkably, it's on a pretty steady curve. And people argue about this, but if you extend the curve out into the future, you can predict how fast technology will be. And if you just sort of follow the standard prognostications, we're going to reach something like the level of human intelligence in inexpensive machines. This is a $1,000 computer in about 10 years. Wow, that's a pretty daunting thing. And other aspects of technology are similarly moving extremely rapidly. There's a lot of popular movies that sort of deal with this issue of technology and what kind of a society comes from it. Terminator, The Matrix, Battlestar Galactica. Thank you for, I didn't watch that one. And they all kind of paint the same dystopian future in which we build these machines and then the machines turn on us and either kill us or we get big battles going on, and it's a horrible future with lots of fighting going on. Of course, that's good for making movies about because it makes it exciting. But is this really what we're destined to, or is this a necessity? Can we understand, can we analyze what AI is likely to give rise to? Well, those same issues that I mentioned about rational economic thought and taking actions so as to meet specific goals apply just as much to artificially intelligent systems as they do to all those biological systems we talked about. And so you can think of any intelligent system. There are a lot of technologies for AI these days, things neural networks, production systems, theorem provers, genetic algorithms. But what they all have in common is that they're trying to do something. They have some goal that they're trying to achieve. And they have some internal mechanism by which they take the data that they've got to try and achieve that goal. And I'm going to argue that all of those systems, no matter what they started out as, will eventually become approximations to rational economic agents. And here's how the argument goes. The first thing to realize is, so if you're a goal-directed system, you're thinking about taking an action. What you do is you see if that action is likely to lead to the goal that you care about or not. One kind of action you can take is to change yourself. You can change your software, reprogram yourself, or change your physical structure. And those self-modifications potentially change your entire future. So if you make, let's say you optimize one of your algorithms so that you're more efficient, then for your entire future, you're going to be a more efficient thinker. So that kind of a change has a huge impact on your future. And so if you have goals and you're really acting to try and make those goals happen, then self-modifications or self-improvements are changes that you really, really want to make. On the other hand, you have to be very careful, because if you make a change to yourself which leads to a bad outcome, then forevermore, your future self is going to do terrible things. Let's say you're a book lover, and you accidentally flip some bit somewhere, and you change yourself to somebody that likes to burn books. Then you've done the worst thing from your current perspective. And so systems considering changing themselves will certainly want to do it because it has huge positive impact, but they want to be very, very careful. So what does it mean to be careful? Well, the first thing is they have to clearly identify what their goals are. When systems are first built, AIs, hackers are sitting in their basement writing code to do, I'm going to write a chess player, I'm going to write a, better algorithm, better search algorithm than Google or whatever it is. They often aren't being so clear about exactly what the goals are. But if the system is trying to analyze itself and make these changes very, very carefully, it's going to have to identify exactly what the goals are, because it can envision its future self also making changes. And if the goals are not clear, its future self might make changes which, again, are in a different direction than the current self wants. So one of the first order of business in improving yourself is to identify very, very clearly and formally what your goals are. You also have to build an accurate model of the world so that you can make these changes in a way that's effective. You have to model yourself, what your programming language is, what your hardware is, and you have to choose actions which meet those goals. And so what kinds of changes do you want to make to yourself? You want to make yourself more rational. To the extent that you're not behaving in a rational way according to that rational economic prescription, first of all, you're not doing the best that you could at meeting your goals, and you're vulnerable to some other agent coming and taking advantage of those. There's a fundamental theorem from microeconomics which says that the extent to which you're not behaving like a rational economic agent, you're subject to Dutch debts. You're subject to other agents sort of interacting with you in ways that force you to give them money and you to end up back where you started. And so in biology and in economics, people tend to we've only had to change in response to threats which already existed out there. Biological organism might have a vulnerability, but if there's no predator which is taking advantage of it, then there's no evolutionary pressure on it. AIs will be able to envision what the possible competitors might be, and so they will feel pressure to proactively, if there's any possibility of anybody taking advantage of a vulnerability, that they'll want to fix it. And so AIs will feel pressure to make themselves rational much more rapidly than biology has. In fact, we're only partly rational. There's a big literature, Kennan and Tversky, all about ways in which we behave irrationally, but it's always in situations which didn't occur in our evolutionary development. And so we're extremely rational on the things that really matter to us, but you can construct little, weird situations which we weren't familiar with, in which we